chairperson for the Public Works Committee and also the District 1 alderperson. Let's go around the room quick and do a roll. Start with Joe.
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Paul Vollert, Public Works Superintendent.
Madeline Palmquist, District 8.
Jeff Benscover, Alderman, District 4.
Matt Zacher, Mayor.
Dennis Pollock, 6th Ward, Alderman.
Thank you, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Item 2, review Engineering and Street Department monthly activity report. Paul, you want to get us started?
Sure. Apologize for not having our report in the packet, but I delivered it to everybody. Hope everybody has a copy. The month of October, garbage and recycling continued to be relatively consistent throughout the year. Our construction project, the only one that we have open is Wiley Street. So for the month of October, the majority of our work has been completed there, waiting for the contractors to complete the concrete work, but we backfilled the curb and gutter after that was completed and prepped for the sidewalk and driveway construction. Finished graded and preparing for asphalt. We'll start actually tomorrow. And then also have about a block and a half of black dirt done because the sidewalk and driveways are completed. That project won't get completed this year. The restoration will take place in the spring, just because the salt tends to kill the new seed and everything like that. But asphalt paving is scheduled for next Tuesday or Wednesday, depending upon what the weather does to us this weekend. And at that time, we'll finish the black dirt and things like that. Our maintenance activities, because our construction crew did not have a project going on, we completed the installation of the storm sewer catch basins on 3rd Street. That was a request or a kind of part of the request of one of the referrals that we have. It's just a temporary fix to fix that drainage issues that we had out there with a project happening in the future or whatever, but I think we have that kind of taken care of for the time being. We also worked for the Parks Department and installed some storm drains and catch basins out in the field around the new playground area at Mead Field and then the pickleball courts as well. We worked with Water and Light on a few water main breaks that occurred over the last month. Obviously, the majority of the leaves have dropped from the trees, so it's been nonstop trying to pick the leaves out of the roadway. So we ran all 3 sweepers for the whole month of October. Just some miscellaneous concrete work, trying to get that done before freeze up. We also did our Mr. Manholes. That's where we go and cut circle around the manholes in the middle of the street and then pour them in concrete so that they ride better. So we did Lincoln Street, 9th Street, and a few other ones that are scattered throughout the city. Completed the last brush pickup for the year until the first of the year. This week also then we completed the second yard waste collection throughout the city. Our sign shop continues to fix damaged signs throughout the city. Completed a couple of the work orders that we had out there in a couple different locations. We installed the banners for the 2 WIA events that have happened. So last weekend was the state cross-country meet, and then those banners will stay up for another 2 weeks because the high school hosts the 8-on-8 state championship at the Southwood County 2000 fields. We also then got our stuff that we normally keep outside indoors so that it doesn't freeze. The shop has been busy maintaining the fleet. We have all of the sanding trucks ready to roll, mounted the underbodies, rear mounted wings and sanders, went through the 6 loaders and their plows and wings to make sure that they were ready. We also have some ignition exhaust issues with the wastewater truck that we're trying to pinpoint what the issue is there. And then had to replace some pins and bushings on a tandem axle truck and some articulating cylinders on the mainstay grader. A reminder that next week, Wednesday, November 13th, the East Side Compost will be closed for the year at the end of the day on that Wednesday. The west side will close the extended hours on that Friday, and then that is open weather permitting daily, 7:30 to 2:30 until we get snow. So that's all that I have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions, comments for Paul? Maddie?
I'm following up on, we had passed the revision to the parking ordinance, but I know that we were working on street repairs, so we did not put the new signs out. That's still on the list, or did
Yep.
that get completed?
Yeah, so we actually just took delivery from our, one of our vendors for the sign blanks. All the signs are removed, and so we're working on getting those refaced and starting to put those up here actually this week, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move to Joe with the engineering report.
Thank you. For permits, the month of October, permits and Diggers Hotline locates have remained steady with the mild weather. Related to traffic, we started a traffic signal project on the expressway at Chase Street and High Street. That began on November 4th. So through the month of October, we had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, go through all the details prior to starting that activity. Both intersections, the High Street and Chase Street travelway is essentially closed off. The signals are dark, and so certainly an inconvenience to the public there. We did get some exhibits out as part of that public notification to kind of explain what exactly was being closed and where turning movements would be allowed. In addition to our 2025 construction projects, the designs continuing to move forward on 14th Avenue and Plover Street, as well as wrapping up all of our fall surveys, which are now complete. And we did submit project plans and specifications to the DOT by the end of October for final review and bidding of the 8th Street and Wood Avenue ped crossing. And then related to the connecting highway project, DOT project on 8th Street from Lakewood Lane to Whitrock Avenue, proposed for construction in 2028. We met with the DOT design team that's going to be working on that project on October 16th to go through preliminary scoping and needs for the project. Some additional work has occurred with the rail notification project. We've submitted plans to the DOT on October 1st, and they're continuing to work through the environmental aspect of that, but we will be continuing to follow up with them and work through that aspect to get the project out for bid. And then lastly, just a quick update on the bridge lighting project. All of the conduits, the wires, the light fixtures on the Grand Avenue Bridge are up at this point, and they're going to currently scheduled to program some of the lighting sequences on the Grand Avenue Bridge as early as next Tuesday. And they're currently working on the Jackson Street Bridge again, pulling wire. They're going to have the north side complete here on Sunday of this week. And then they'll have to jump over to the south side of the Jackson Street Bridge again here one more time through next week. And that should wrap up their activity then. And it'll just be programming and turning everything on and making sure things are operational after that. And that concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Questions or comments for engineering? Go ahead, Jeff.
Is there a date set for when we're gonna officially light that up, or the bridges?
I believe that there may be something in the works for that, but near the end of the month. I'm not sure if it's official yet. I mean, obviously from our vantage point in engineering, just making sure the contractor's gonna have, that we've got power, things are operational, we've got programs in place, you know, and that they're going to work by, perhaps by the November 27th, Rekindle the Spirit might be an opportune time for that.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3. Review bid results for the 2024 crushing contract and consider awarding the bid to the low qualified bidder. Joe?
So we opened bids today at 2 p.m. We had 6 contractors, 6 bids, and the lowest bid was to Kartechner Brothers out of Waupun, and in a low bid amount of $118,951.00. And I guess based on that, we would recommend accepting the bids and awarding the project to this contractor in the low bid amount.
Thank you, Joe. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Manny.
Can you give me a high-level overview of what this contract was for?
Certainly. It's for crushing, so the city collects off of all of our road projects and probably miscellaneous other activities in town as well. Use concrete, you know, concrete pavement, sidewalk, curb and gutter. That all gets stockpiled. Once we have either a need for road base or the recycle pile is of a certain size, we'll call in a contractor like we did with this contract, have them come in, do the crushing for us. We'll crush 3/4 inch road base or 1 1/4 inch road base. And then if the need arises for asphalt, we'll have that crushed as well. But then we reuse that road base material on all of our road projects.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll move to award the crushing contract to Kartechner Brothers in the amount of $118,951. Is there a second?
I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it. All right, moving on to item 4. Review and consider modifying the parking along Dale Street between 6th Street South and the East Cul-de-sac. Joe, you want to start us off?
Sure. So this item was previously brought before the committee in September, I believe. And at that time, there was a motion to add no parking to both two areas, one on Dale Street and then the other on the east side of 6th Street. Those signs have since been in place, and Alderperson Kadanak submitted a referral after hearing from, I believe, Steve's Plumbing related to, and maybe other businesses and property owners in the area, that the parking situation that's now developed since the installation of the no parking signs has perhaps made the situation worse and moved those parked vehicles further into residential neighborhoods. So I guess the items back before the committee tonight, I guess I would add a little bit of information from the engineering department related to this topic. Typically, you know, the first thing that we would do in evaluating if parking is suitable on a particular street is first and foremost to make sure that we have adequate space for those parked vehicles. You know, do we have enough pavement width to support the traveling public plus parked vehicles? So that's what we do. We've got our typical road standards for all of our new road projects that we construct that have a certain width to them to accommodate certain levels of parking, parking on one side or parking on both sides. The caveat kind of in a situation, pre-existing situation is, such as this, is, you know, how much traffic is there and what's been occurring over time. And so prior to September's motion to change the ordinance and add no parking, there was no restrictions on parking there in that specific area. And largely, you know, the traffic was able to travel just fine without too much infringement. However, you know, those streets are narrow. They are 22 feet to maybe 24 feet in width, which doesn't accommodate two-way traffic along with parking, not even on one side of the street. So it's kind of a complicating factor, but there's certainly a kind of a parking need and a parking issue in that neighborhood between the adjacent businesses that are there. And I think historically there has been a history prior to the current businesses that are there that, you know, in the past there were parking needs there as well, you know, maybe in 15, 20 years ago. But that had changed for a time period, and you know, businesses have moved out and others moved in, and, you know, back to I guess there is a parking need there, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But with that, I don't have anything further to add to it at this point. I believe there's property owners that are present here this evening. Otherwise, if there's any other questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Joe. If there is anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue, now is your time. So please state your name and address. Make sure the green light is on the microphone here at the podium. Green light on the microphone.
There's a green light. Thank you. Steve Llewellyn, owner of Steve's Plumbing, Heating, 1138 6th Street South. Brenda Karbowski, office manager, and Kristen Barker, I'm sorry. She's also office personnel. Been there 30 years now, and it's always been a little tight, but we've always had a way around it. When there was a dance academy there before Quick Trip, and we had a great working relationship, and we could make things happen. Her business ran at night, mine ran during the day, and it worked out quite well. It's been bought, the property in mention's been bought by another party, and we had good conditions and worked that out also. Today, we have a new business there, and it's using all the property, and that's great. Unfortunately, we have grown, and Quick Trip has moved in, and a lot of my parking is now, what we could use is gone. And so we have tried to park on Dewey Street and 6th Street, and I have employees that have cars that have been hit and body damage and insurance claims and things of that nature. And today we have Kristen that gets to be a little bit of a long walk when you're just about 9 months pregnant. So I told her she could park on Dale Street to make her walk shorter, because our area gets filled up with our trucks and our customers' vehicles.
And it was legal.
And it's very legal. And of course,
We tried not to park there.
we try hard not to, but in this case, I said, you could do that. And I guess I feel at this point, after working hard to work with the residents on Dewey Street, they very much complained, and I said, why are we doing this? We have a dead-end street, there's less traffic, and we should be using that versus trying to park on a residential street. Nathan's disagree with me, and I guess that's their prerogative. But I think it's pretty tough to sit there and make your property an island that there's no parking. And so at this point, I would hope that we could look at this in a better light and make some accommodations. I don't see us getting any smaller, and I don't see us getting any less employees. And we do have employees that actually park in Port Edwards at a different location that we have, because that's where they run out of their business. So, yeah, I'll run our business out of that location. But that's only 3 or 4 people. But that's 3 or 4 less parking too. So it's been challenging, and it's super challenging now. The hours are not conducive to a lot of things we do. There's Saturdays and Sundays. I need to put a couple of vehicles, and of course it says no parking 7 days a week. Is it for a long time? Usually not. It's usually for just an hour or 2. But it's been challenging. I do respect their wishes as best I can, but I think this has now gone to more of a...
It's hurting the business because we can't even have customers come because so many of us are parked in front of our office. But customers, I've had customers park over in Quick Trip now because we can't, and Quick Trip obviously doesn't have enough room for parking either, if any of you went there at lunchtime. So we're trying to stay as much off that street as we can, but it is getting to be even more of a struggle, and now that causes us problems with business if customers can't even pull in front because the employees are all pulled in front. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to this particular ordinance?
Good evening. I am Nathan Flinders, owner of N&N Auto Outlet. Address is 641 Dale Street over there. I know I was in here at the end of August, as you may remember. During that Public Works meeting, I voiced my concerns regarding street parking on 6th Street South and Dale Street. At that time, the committee passed a no parking zone from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Dale Street and part of 6th Street South. This has increased the visibility of my business. I'm here today to advocate for the signs to remain. When my partner and I relocated our business within city limits in 2022, we were interested in the visibility from the parkway. Before we purchased the land, Steve's Plumbing rented the lot from the previous owners for parking. A year and a half ago, we added a parking lot to upgrade the aesthetics of our building and to provide adequate parking for our employees, customers, and the vehicles that we are selling. I attended the previous committee meeting after multiple failed attempts to resolve the parking issue with our neighboring business, Steve's Plumbing. After these discussions, there was a noticeable increase of vehicles parked in front of my inventory, which obstructed the view and decreased the visibility of my business. I acknowledge that Steve's Plumbing has inadequate parking for their employees and utility trucks. The large box trucks are parked overnight on once was grass, but is now gravel area that they don't even own and is city property. I'm concerned that if the no parking signs are removed, that there will again be a surge of vehicles parked in front of my lot, obstructing inventory and negatively affecting my business. Furthermore, with the upcoming winter months, vehicles parked there will make snow removal difficult on an already narrow street. I appreciate your continued considerations for making these keeping these no parking signs there.
Thank you. Anyone from committee or anyone else have any input here? I guess I'll start off by saying I understand the necessity for visibility for a car sale lot, and that's what we discussed the last time that we put this ordinance into place. I guess my question is, the ordinance is from 170 feet to the east of 6th Street South, so that additional portion of Dale Street would technically be available for parking. Is that currently being used for parking for anyone, or are we not utilizing that area? Because that's a pretty, I mean, that's nearly double the 170 feet of available parking just down the road from the business. So if anybody cares to answer that, feel free to.
Do you want me to talk to the mic?
Sure.
So their current parking is obviously in the area that you were talking about. I can tell you, I got a call yesterday from Joe at late in the afternoon. I walked out there yesterday. There were 3 open parking spots on the road, which is where they normally park. That is obviously not in the no parking zone. That is around the car dealership. I can tell you that there was 4 open stalls in front of the Steve's Plumbing building. I don't know the name, the pregnant lady, she obviously parks right up front at the building, which is a lot closer than parking in front of our inventory now. So there most definitely is adequate parking in those areas.
Thank you.
Well, Nathan, yes, that is true. A couple of times there definitely is open parking, but I tell you what, I have 4 guys out of town this week working. That is why there's open spaces this week. As I stated before, we do need to leave some open spaces in front of our building so that we can have customers that actually come to us. We can't just have that all closed off because then they're going to go and be parked in front of or in a Quick Trip spot or in front of yours. Now you talk about us moving. We tried very hard to not park in front of your space, and then you went and put the stakes in the ground on city property as well. And you knew that. And we were trying to stay parked to that side so people can see your sign. We weren't blocking you. Even Kristen's car there is short. If you guys look, their lot is up higher. You can see over it. So you can see all of your cars over that. We don't want to fight with them at this. We just want to be able to come to work. I don't want her to have to park. He literally said to her one day, "I don't care if you have to walk from Main Street," is what he said. And that you did. And so the point of it is we just want to be able to come to work. We want to be able to do our jobs and not have to walk 1.5 miles to work every day. You know, we've been here for 30 years. We have been part of this community. We do things for the community, and we don't want to have to be pushed out. We do buy another piece of property that we were going to do something. Well, we really want to stay in Rapids, ideally. But this is making that difficult, you know, and we want to stay, we want to get along, and we've always gotten along with everyone else. You're only seeing your needs, and that's it. You know, we try to work with you to stay out of the way, and we just don't have any other options at this point.
I appreciate the feedback from both sides. My question was, are we utilizing the parking on Dale Street beyond the no parking restriction?
You mean way down there?
Correct. That's,
No.
I would say it's probably less than it's less than 100 yards.
No.
170 feet from the corner, it's open for parking.
Like down in the cul-de-sac?
Correct.
No.
Because that is open for parking.
Okay. I guess if that's the worst case scenario, but again, you don't have to, you could still see everything they have. How far is that? We're going to have people walking that far.
I'm
Is it
just
not
pointing out, it
No,
seems like an awful lot closer than even going to Dewey Street, if you just park on Dale Street beyond the restricted area.
Probably a horse apiece there, I would imagine, but I do think that Dewey Street is definitely, like I said, we've been harassed by the residents on Dewey Street about parking down on Dewey Street before. But yes, could we walk down there? Yes. But could we come up with a solution? Maybe we take one side and they can have the other side, no parking. Is that an option?
Well, it's something the committee can discuss. I guess obviously, I'm not sure what that length of street is there, Joe. Maybe you can give us a ballpark. I know there's no parking in the cul-de-sac itself, but you have an idea about approximately how many lineal feet, how many parking spots that would be?
So so from Sixth Street to the cul-de-sac is about 400 feet.
So I assume the no parking goes all the way down to the end of your building?
No. It goes to the end of the park, yeah, where the cars are. So in front of the building is 170 feet, and then in front of the next house is 110 feet. I don't know how many cars fit in that.
It's about 20 feet per length of vehicle.
Okay.
So roughly, 10 cars should fit in that space before the cul-de-sac.
Right.
Yeah, would be on the south side of it?
Correct, on the
Yeah.
south side.
The area that you're referring to, Ryan, is, I seen the sign stop there. There's also a curb and gutter there. So that means we'd be parking up to the curb and blocking that narrow road further than it is already. And so snow removal would really be a challenge for your city crew if we parked there. Where we park today is actually off the road.
Yep, understood, but again, it is open for parking. There is no ordinance there stating you cannot park there.
Give it 15 minutes and maybe it'll change, right?
No. Anything further from committee?
Just my general comment, that parking on roads in residential areas is normal in lots of communities that aren't Wisconsin Rapids. So while I sympathize with all of our residents who do not like cars parked on the road, it happens, and that's okay. We need to be okay with it. In this, I don't feel like we need to impact one business to benefit another or benefit one business to impact another. I think having the visibility, whether it's no parking there prevents any obstruction from a box truck obstructing a car view. It allows our business who's there currently to have that frontage that they paid to improve and look nice. I'm in support of keeping the current parking restrictions.
Joe, what about Sixth Street there? I know we discussed it's tight quarters, especially if there's vehicle deliveries. Is there any opportunity? I know maybe a little feedback from both parties, but even if it's a spot or two there, if we can compromise, is that something that we could entertain here? I guess more leaning towards the dealership, yeah.
So what brought this whole issue up in the first place is that they were parking on the area that you were talking. So I know that there's, I don't exactly remember, it's 150 feet or something?
That section is 60 feet from Dale Street to the north on Sixth Street is no parking.
Okay, so around on the property that we own, I know that obviously we put the parking lot in, there's the drain pit, and then we're working on getting signs right now for the front of our building, and next summer after the snow, we're putting a ground sign, basically at right across from the exit of Quick Trip. I do know that our parking lot is, towards the exit of Quick Trip, and we have vehicles. Right now there's 2 vehicles over there that face Quick Trip right at the exit on the back of Quick Trip. So they basically were parking on all of the green space that we had right there. So the ordinance that was passed basically allowed it so that they could park anything past the grass that we have over there where we're trying to grow. It was hard because it kept getting driven over.
Yeah, I guess my question is there an opportunity to lessen that distance to potentially create a spot or two?
To be honest, I understand what you're saying. We tried that before. We really didn't have an issue, and until they kept creeping over, they would add another truck, another car. We would ask them, everything was fine, and then they got upset one time when I asked them if they could move it, and basically that they didn't legally have to. So this is how this got brought up, because they were parking in the area that you're talking. I know right now they fit at least 5 vehicles on each side on 6th Street, and that doesn't include all of the parking stalls in front. I don't exactly know how many employees they have. I do know that when we purchased the property in 2022, I obviously talked to Steve. He was very friendly to me at the time. He mentioned to me that they did buy another piece of property. It's not because they want to stay in the city of Wisconsin Rapids while they're not moving, because they were having issues with building permits out where they wanted to do that. So,
Let's,
I
let's,
mean,
please, let's keep the discussion per the content of the agenda. I understand the struggles here, but again,
I guess I mean, we put in a parking lot to have our employees park and our customers and our vehicles for sale, and the parking around the property is obviously dampens the visibility tons.
Joel, what are your thoughts about 6th Street?
Well, it's a 24-foot wide street, as far as the pavement width goes. But, from the south end, there's, I don't know, maybe 6 parking stalls on the west side before the Quick Trip entrance. Those are right in front of Steve's Plumbing. As you move further up, once you hit the Quick Trip driveway, oftentimes there's vehicles, at least that I've witnessed, both sides of the street there, all the way up to, basically up to the next intersection at Dewey Street. It probably fluctuates throughout the day, but, I think Quick Trip is also utilizing, some of their employees are maybe parking back there perhaps. And between the couple businesses here perhaps and the neighboring property owners, if they park a car out there, there isn't a lot of space left except for perhaps that roughly 80 feet adjacent to the N&N property on 6th Street.
Thank you.
So there's currently no parking on 6th Street South on the east side from Dewey, 40 feet north of Dewey. That's on the other side. Not on, I'm looking at the map with the current restrictions and provisions, page 12. So that restriction is not shown on the map, but it would be the north side of Dewey. Is 40 feet the standard, or could we change that to 20?
Just give me a moment here to
Yeah.
bring this up. Okay, so you're referencing the no parking ordinance 27.13 119L?
Correct.
Okay. So, I just want to make sure I know what that reads. So yeah, so like you said, that's on the far side of Dewey Street, right?
Yep.
What's going on there? Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure, other than perhaps a vision restriction, just to make sure no vehicles park in that corner. That's what I guess I would likely. The likely reason why it's 40 feet there. So I guess I'm not sure what your question was.
That was my question.
Okay.
Why was it 40, vision? Because on the south side of 6th Street, south side of Dewey on 6th Street, we don't have that same restriction. So it makes sense to me that it's 40. I was just trying to find another 20 feet somewhere.
Sure.
Anything else from committee?
I guess I would like to maybe put this off and walk the property and talk to both owners, if that's possible, to kind of get an eyes-on type thing. You know, I mean, it is definitely an obstructed area. There's got to be a solution here somewhere, you know. Do we have to make a decision on this tonight, or can we put this off for a month?
I understand your optimism. I feel like this is fairly cut and dry. But I would not be opposed to keeping the ordinance in place and bringing this back. But hopefully it's beneficial and it's just not kicking the can down the road. I guess that would be my comment. Mayor Zacher?
It's just, Paul, I don't know if you know offhand, but usually you do. Do you run, what size truck do you run down here to clear the snow?
That's plowed with an end loader that's got a 12-foot wing, 12-foot plow and a 10-foot wing.
So a big one.
It's small because it's smaller than what we normally use, but because that area also does down around the hospital area, so the narrower streets in that area, so we don't have to be so wide.
Okay. And Joe, is that, it says no parking on the map that I have here. Is that no parking for the entire cul-de-sac? Or Paul, do you know that?
It's the entire cul-de-sac.
No parking in that area. Can you park on the other side of the road? And that's the 280 feet?
I think you can now down in front of that resident. At one time, it was a mountable curb when it was Colonial Appraisal. But I think now that converted over to a resident, I think they put barrier curb in there. And then obviously, I think in front of the N&N store, that's mountable curb, so
No.
there's really no place to park there.
What is it? You can park next to the curb though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So there's space for 10 cars there
Yeah, on the south side of the road.
on the south side. You
Yeah.
can't park on the north side of the road.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The south side has barrier curb, so yeah, there's no issue.
Okay. But you can't park on both sides.
Correct.
Okay. But you do have 10 spaces there. All right. Thank you.
All right, what are the committee's wishes? Well, hearing no motion, I would say no action will be taken at this time. If folks would like to go down and take a look, feel free, and we can absolutely bring this back if needed. Okay, moving on. Item 5, review and consider modifying the parking along 6th Street South between Dale Street and Dewey Street. Joe?
I had them separated just in case there was separate motions for each of them, so.
Okay. And then we will move on then to item 6, which is review and consider a resolution proposing to alter the at-grade crossing on 32nd Street north of Kingston Road. Joe?
So as you might recall, the Office of Commissioner of Railroads issued a final decision on the investigation into the warning devices in unauthorized alteration due to the street widening of 32nd Street. That was submitted to the city a while back, and since that time, we've been evaluating options, considering what we can do, what the cost would be, in order to either do an improvement there and upgrade the grade crossing and make an application to the OCR as such, or what we were hoping to do is essentially what we've put together here is a a concept that largely through signage and pavement marking, we effectively revert the current footprint of the street back down to a 24-foot travel way, which is consistent with the width that was originally approved from OCR back in maybe the 90s. And so with that, it's what's called the petition for the alteration of an at-grade crossing. We have to submit a plan, we have to submit justification, rationale, for that plan, and along with a resolution from the governing body that, basically that body agrees that, hey, we've seen this, and we passed a resolution to do these alterations. From that, what we do is submit that documentation through their electronic portal online, and then I guess we'd wait to hear back from them. So I've got the plans included in the packet, along with the cover letter and supporting documentation, and then a copy or draft of the resolution. So I guess looking for, if there's any questions, but otherwise requesting a motion recommending adoption of the resolution to file a petition for alteration.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe?
That's separate from the Kingston Road cul-de-sac. Two
Yes.
separate issues, correct?
Yep.
Great.
Anyone else? What are the committee's wishes?
Motion to approve grade crossing improvements on Kingston Road.
We have a motion. I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Item 7, review and consider grade crossing improvements on Kingston Road. Joe?
So we first visited this with the committee last month, bringing it back this month with a little bit more information. One of the questions that was asked last meeting was, what the age of the crossing equipment is out there and how often does it need to be replaced. That's really the impetus for this whole discussion, is that equipment that's there at the grade crossing is at its end of life. It was originally put in 1974. The equipment typically has a lifespan of 25 to 40 years, so we're at the 50-year mark with it. And so CN, the railroad, was essentially saying, hey, Office of Commissioner of Railroads, we want to upgrade this equipment. We're asking for a 50-50 cost share on it through their grant process. And through that review, the Office of Commissioner of Railroads says, hey, this crossing might not be warranted anymore, or might not be of value for the state to input dollars into upgrading all of this equipment. And so they came back to the community here and said, hey, what does the community think about closing this street? And I guess that's still the question before the committee this evening, is if the city wants to close that street or try not to close the street. And so what I mean by that is there's through the Office of Commissioner of Railroads and the process of grade crossing closure, that if presented to the city can voluntarily pursue the crossing closure. If we voluntarily pursue the closure, there'll still be a public hearing and all of that, a process that would still ensue before the crossing is actually closed. But there would be up to a $30,000 cost share from the state to help support the costs of the removal. In addition to that, the railroad would have to match everything that the Office of Commissioner of Railroads would put forth, but they could also fund more than up to $30,000. So considering that the new crossing equipment is on average about $320,000, even at a 50-50 cost share, it's still more than what we're projecting for if the city were to pursue the voluntary closure and reestablishing the roadways, driveways and such adjacent to the street. That projected cost is about $130,000. So I think if the city pursued that route, we would ask the railroad and OCR to pay for, essentially paying for all of it. I don't know how that will pan out in the end, but considering it's less than the 50,000 or 50% cost share from the railroad, I would think that there would be a chance at least that, the city could have the costs covered to remove the roadway and reestablish curb lines and at some sort of turnaround off of near 26th Street. But in the event that the city says, doesn't want to do the voluntary and wants to keep the street, there is a process in which that would, the state would still pursue it. And under that process, the city would lose the additional incentive from the state. So the Office of Commissioner of Railroads, CN, and then the city would present arguments for keeping the crossing open or closing it. And that would be presented to an administrative law judge. The public would also have an opportunity to be heard during that public hearing process. And then ultimately, the Commissioner of Railroads would make a final decision regarding the crossing closure. So it would be, after hearing all of the facts and information, the Commissioner would make a final decision on that.
Thank you, Joe. Questions, comments by committee?
So I'm still in favor of voluntarily choosing to get help paying for this in closing the road. But I have concerns about the two properties that are located there, and this diagram that shows the cul-de-sac would significantly impede on their property. One of which I know recently sold. I don't know the motives of the person buying that property, but it could have been for driveway space, and we would be taking that away. So is the location of the cul-de-sac where it's depicted the only location, or could we?
No, there's definitely modifications as such. I mean, anytime we get into private property purchase, we'd want to avoid that as much as possible. So if it's a smaller cul-de-sac, or maybe we pull it back further to the west and try to move it a little further south, or there's other like T-style turnarounds that we've used as well, that might suffice here. So this is really just a very preliminary, drop some line work in, get some quantities figured out so we could have something to discuss. But certainly I wouldn't necessarily be proposing this.
Thank you.
Jeff?
I did walk this property with Joe about 3 weeks ago. I guess I would like to see this move on where we voluntarily close the road. There's plenty of access to 32nd Street, Washington Street. I'm looking at the cost here, $320,000 versus the $130,000. If we do it, then the railroad, there's a chance that they would pay for the $130,000. So, and Joe had told me that there would be letters sent out to all the property owners for the public hearing so they could voice their opinions. It'll be a slow process, but I'd like to get the ball rolling on this. If we could, I would make a motion to do that.
Okay, so we have a motion to close the grade crossing
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor to respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, item 8, review the referral list. Let's see. Change our policy. Any questions or additions to the referral list? Hearing none, we'll move to item 9, which is set the next meeting date. Looks like it would be the 5th of December. Any issues with the 5th, committee members?
No.
Okay, the 5th for 5 p.m. And item 10, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, respond with aye.
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 Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.